Hello, everybody. My name's Andy. I'm from an agency in Brighton in the UK, a digital agency. We work a lot with museums, and I'm here with some friends today to talk about IIIF. So I'm going to give a whirlwind tour before we go into some demos and applications of IIIF. What is IIIF? So I'm going to try and say this without stumbling. It's the International Image Interoperability Framework. And what is that? So it's a standard, it's a framework for requesting images and their metadata over the web. It's a fairly simple concept, but it belies the changes that you can make and the flexibility that it gives you in providing images and metadata on the web. It started in the world of libraries, and some libraries and organizations over here who are using it are the Digital Public Library of America, the World Digital Library, and the Internet Archive have just adopted IIIF. Also, some co-presenters here today have been using it, and they're going to show you what they've been up to as well. Like I said, it allows you flexibility, and it sends back metadata. But how do you actually get those back? It's in two parts. The first part's the image API. So historically, your images, you would have sets of images, sets of derivatives. So maybe a thumbnail, a larger image, a giant image. And you're restricted to those sets unless you want to do some production work and get a new set. IIIF changes this. And it allows you to request images in whatever derivative size you want, some other things on the fly. So you have basically a free rein to use images the way they should be for whatever application you're using them in. So it basically breaks that lock-in of tiny images or using small images on a page when you really want a big one, but you haven't got the staff to go and create all these images. This also then maintains quality of the image, so there's no upscaling and horribleness that you see in places where you just where the image sizes are set. Things that you can do with it are you can request different sizes, you can request different crops, zooms, and rotation, and I'll show you some of those applications. So why is this a good thing? So you can see medium on the left, it's not real, but this banner, you've got a very strange specific size, but with IIIF you can request an image of that size very easily and then present it how it should be presented. The way you do this is through the URL and standard image call to a server, but what you specify on top of that is the properties that you want to do. So width, height, crop, coordinates, things like that. Other benefits then would be things like retina images, when some disruptive technology comes along and you have to accommodate it. All this is just easy, it's just a different URL. You don't have to do anything else. You're essentially future-proofing the delivery of your images. So that's the first part. The second part is the presentation API, and this deals with metadata. So what you can do is request metadata about the image that is being served. This metadata comes back in JSON format, in a manifest file, and this is a standard way. So any software that's delivering this metadata, the format will be the same. Things that could be in there would be things like your collection data, tombstone information maybe, copyright information, but also a key piece of information that's in there is how this image that you've got relates to other images. So, for example, in a library instance, you could have a digitized page, and you'd know where that page was in the book, which comes next, which came first before it. Other things like different types of view, like UV, X-ray views, things like that, relations, other images that are related to the one you're looking at. The main application of this right now is that it allows you to use different viewers. So these viewers are being developed by various institutions. The top one is called Mirador that came out of Stanford. And then you've got the Internet Archive book reader. What this means is that because this stuff is coming back in a standard format, you don't have to go and build your own if you don't need to. And it allows scholars to work in the way that best suits them. So the one at the top is quite a complex, in-depth viewer. The one at the bottom's stripped back. They work in different instances. They're for different uses. But you can have one server serving the same stuff. So that's exactly the same. Those two viewers are looking at exactly the same thing. And there's lots of other ones. The other benefit of that is that if you do roll your own thing because you want something fancy or special, you can share it with your friends. You know, as long as you put that code out there, it will just drop in, it'll just work. So I'm going to pass you along to Melissa, who's been working with this stuff recently. Here we go.
Hi, I'm Melissa. I'm from the Yale Center for British Art, and I'd like to speak with you about our current and future use of IIIF. I'd like to give credit to my colleagues Michael Appleby, Emmanuel Delmas-Glass, Edward Town, and Jessica David, since this talk draws heavily on their work and presentations with IIIF. So the Yale Center for British Art is the most comprehensive collection of British art outside the United Kingdom, and it's part of our mission to facilitate the study of British art worldwide. The center, along with the other Yale museums, was at the forefront of the development of Yale's open access policy for digital images of works in the public domain. Since 2011, we've made thousands of high-resolution images of our works freely available online. Today, with open access policies in place in more museums worldwide, we ask ourselves, how can we build on this openness? What do our colleagues, users, and researchers really want to be able to do with our images? They want to see works at the highest level of detail, compare images not only within collections, but between works held by different institutions, create their own galleries for online research or exhibition, and annotate images in the course of their research. The goals of the International Image Interoperability Framework support all of these uses. So with these goals in mind, I'd like to turn to the Center's digital strategy. We're committed to using technology to make our collections as widely accessible as possible, and this digital strategy is supported by our open access policy, our use of data exchange standards and protocols, open source tools, and linked open data. Our collections data is available through our online catalog where users can search collection records and view and download images. However, we also disseminate our digital resources in a programmatic fashion, which is more efficient when dealing with large data aggregators and even Yale's own cross-collection discovery service. How do we do that? We contribute our data set via community-developed standards, the Open Archives Internet Protocol for Metadata Harvesting, or OAI PMH, along with lightweight information describing works of art, or LIDO, an international XML metadata schema. The expression of data from our collection management system, TMS, via OAI PMH is made possible through a piece of open source software, Cobot, that was designed by COGAP for OCLC and was reconfigured by our data systems manager to work with LIDO. We also maintain a linked open data semantic endpoint with the data organized according to CDOC CRM, an ontology developed by the cultural heritage community. So as you can see by now, IIIF is an extraordinarily good fit for the Center's digital strategy. It's international, shared, supports interoperability between image repositories, leverages open source software and open access resources, and utilizes the principles of linked data. So with this in mind, what uses have we made of it so far? The Yale Digital Collection Center, which is now part of Yale Information Technology, established a IIIF-compliant image server, and in 2013, modified an extension to our digital asset management system to allow us to encode and deliver JPEG 2000 images. We subsequently implemented the open source IIP MoveViewer for use in our online collection and enabled high-res zoom on a group of nearly 17,000 images in May 2013. And today we make over 47,000 IIIF compliant images freely available. In addition, we have an active cataloging project at the center where, according to Edward Town, our postdoctoral research associate, and Jessica David, our associate paintings conservator, we see the potential for image viewing software like Mirador to play a decisive role in helping to solve key research questions. This in-depth cataloging project grew from Making Art in Tudor Britain, which was a project at the National Portrait Gallery in London. Attempts to attribute works from this period are often frustrated by the fact that artists rarely sign their work, and there's very little documentary evidence about the paintings. This means that the close examination of the objects themselves takes on a greater significance. A great deal of what Jessica and Ed do involves the collection, organization, and comparison of visual material, from old and new photographs of paintings to X-rays, infrared reflectograms, and photomicrographs of paint samples. Since they rarely have the opportunity to study the physical portraits side by side, the storage, sharing, and annotation of the visual documentation is essential to their research process. Our portrait of an unknown woman from 1567 is a typical example. In order to establish the center's portrait among a group of similar works, Jessica and Ed study how other similar portraits are constructed. It's their conjecture that the center's portrait and the two other portraits shown here originate from the same artist's workshop, but this argument requires extensive illustration. Ideally, they envision being able to place their visual resource and annotations into a shared workspace where colleagues could review and comment on their work, have access to the original image files, overlay and compare images at scale, and add additional images to the workspace as they become available. The center anticipates that working with images and data in Mirador, a IIIF-compatible image viewer, examples of which you've seen here, as it develops, will facilitate the discovery of links between paintings. Please contact my colleagues or me if you have any questions about our work. Thanks.
Hello, everybody. My name is Tristan. I'm also from CogApp, and what I would like to do is just to talk a bit about some of the work we've done in implementing IIIF and using IIIF for one of our clients, the Qatar Digital Library. So to do this, I'm going to switch to a live demo, which let me see if I can work out how to get out of this. On this screen. Okay, sorry, bear with me. And here we go. Okay. So here we go. What we've got here, I'll just do a quick demonstration. So as Andy mentioned, the IIIF is merely a case of modifying the URL. So here we're looking at the site itself. You're encouraged to play along with this if you want. Go to qdl.qa, pick any archive item, right-click and view image, and then you can see here I'm just changing the URL parameters there. So I requested the full-size image. I've immediately got it at the highest resolution that we provide. But what you can also do is change another part of the URL that talks about the crop area. So if we change a crop, suddenly we've zoomed in to that image. We're still getting it at the full resolution, so it'll be over 1,000 pixels to a side. But what we can also do is then change that, and if we wanted a smaller version, again, as Andy said, if you want to embed this on a blog, or as Melissa mentioned, for digital scholarship purposes, you can specify exactly what size and area you want. So now we've got it at 600 pixels wide, for example. Although there's URL parameters, there's also sort of easier ways to do this. Here's an example from University College Dublin, and what they've done is just create a simple thing where people can drag and drop, and what you get out of this is the exact URL that you need, and you click preview an image, and sure enough, ta-da, I'm zoomed in, there's an image, I can right-click, I can save it, immediately use it, or just live link to it. So anyway, here we go, looking at a bit about the presentation API. So here's an item on the live QDL site. If I want to see the equivalent manifest for this, the actual JSON data that corresponds to this, then it's a case of updating the URL. And here we go. So it's exactly the same information that you would read on the website as a human, but now presented in machine-readable format. The advantage of this is, as Andy mentioned, you can now point different viewers at it. So here is a viewer called Mirador. It's essentially a fairly complicated viewer. It has an awful lot of features, including sort of annotations here. You can do all sorts of things like changing the layout, seeing things by thumbnails. There's an information panel, and again here we can provide metadata about the description of the object, also things like the copyright terms, and any other structured information that you want. And all of this information is available in other viewers as well. So here's another project, the Universal Viewer. This was initially commissioned by the British Library. It's since been extended. It's another open source viewer developed by a company called Digerati. And again, we see a similar to Mirador, we can see the structure of the item. So here we've got sub-items within the main archive. There's also the structured information there. And this has sort of various features, jumping to a particular page and so on. And then the last one is almost at the opposite end of the spectrum, the Internet Archive Viewer. And here we have a very simple metaphor. It's just a page-turning thing. And again, this may be more applicable for certain types of user who don't actually want all the power and complexity of Mirador. So just quickly, a last moment on it's not all about digital scholarship. it can be about fun. So here is an arcade machine created at the British Library. They wanted some games to run on it, the crowdsourcing arcade machine. So here's a game that I created, and I'll be providing links to these in the presentation. So here we go. It's really exciting. What we see is the images that come from this, and as soon as I see something that's incorrect, whoops, hang on. If I find an incorrect word, such as this one, then I can flag it as incorrect, and look, I've scored 1 point. Then I can go through and carry on, and any others, oh, that doesn't look incorrect either. And I can carry on and on and on, and there are 500,000 pages of this stuff, so it takes a while to win the game, but the point is, this isn't a good game. It's not even a particularly good use of crowdsourcing, but what it is an interesting use of IIIF, because all of those images, because we know that the OCR software has given us the coordinates that it's using for both the sentence, the full sentence displayed at the top, and then the individual words as we go along, we can exactly pick out regions of that image and use it for other purposes as well. So really, that was all I wanted to say. Thank you. So hang on, Andy, I need to get this back.
Stop playing.
I'm trying to get back.
Yeah, David? Okay, set up.
Can I just ask a question while you're setting up? What was the name of the tool? Not the QDL QA, but the other one where you can flip and embed detail.
It's University College of Dublin, their collection. I think if you look at their collection, they've then got a link that says something like crop and share or download this image. But if not, I can certainly provide the URL as part of the talk description.
Have they posted code for that?
I'm not sure, but
Most of the developers post code on the either on the IIIF site or on GitHubs.
Yeah, they may well.
So there was a hackathon last month. Several institutions and the Stanford guys were in Philadelphia, and I joined them. The objective of the hackathon was to expose more IIIF images on the web. So at the gallery, we don't have any IIIF live currently, but we're exploring potentially using it, including some version of the Mirador viewer. And we're also looking at it on a number of other initiatives, like our conservation space project, as well as our library. So this demo is just for demonstrating some of the work. Did I do this right? Oh, there we are. Can we get this in full screen?
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. Okay, just bigger. Thanks. Okay, so this is basically showing an art object on our website, Cezanne Sketchbook, which has 71 drawings. And we wanted to know, how could a researcher add those into the Mirador viewer? So this drag and drop that you're seeing is one solution that we came up with for that. So we're creating a manifest, exposing the URL to that on the website, and it's just literally as simple as dragging into Mirador, and then all of the images associated with that object come up into the viewer. And you can see we have capabilities to zoom. We can add slots in Mirador for the purpose of comparing. So in this case, that's a sketch of Cezanne's son. We also have a painting that I'll show you in a moment. There's actually multiple sketches of his son, so there might be a use case for comparing. And you can add these numbers of slots, or you can add many, many in one view if you wanted to. Under the covers, it's using the Sea Dragon viewer to actually do the zooming. Then if we go and look at other works that we have by Cezanne, one is a painting of his son. And so if you wanted to compare the painting next to the drawing, that's just, again, as easy as dragging and dropping the URL into the Mirador viewer. So we're exploring uses. The Conservation Space Project is going to make extensive use of annotation. And we're working with the Mirador community closely to vet some of the proposed changes and work with them to extend the tool in a way that is supportive of the community, not just for museum needs, but also library needs, and making sure that we do it in a way that that addresses everybody's concerns. And yeah, and so you can see when you have these large images, being able to get down to the individual brush strokes is a pretty neat thing. So thank you.
Hi. So I have 2.5 minutes, which is a half minute more than Rob gave me tomorrow, so I'm very excited.
Live it up.
So, excuse me, go back 3 slides. Okay, so these are some of the library use cases. IIIF started and still remains predominantly a library group. Yale was the first museum to actually develop material with it, and a number of us are looking at it. But if we really wanted to support museums, we need everybody to come forward and use it and maybe develop something and share the code. So these are some of the current use cases that academic libraries all over the world are using. So it's instruction, comparison, annotation, transcription, computational imaging. We've seen some of that. You can pull that in there too. And then the MOOC is very popular. So these are free online courses. So Harvard has the history of the book class, which was developed from Mirador. And Stanford also has one, how to teach a manuscript. There's a lot of map use and geographical use and special plotting. So, excuse me. How do I get back? Tom Kremer was one of the founders, and basically this is what he says to people at the beginning of each talk. We all know images are fundamental to our work and carriers of cultural heritage. I've got an old server. I need a newer, faster server. I can't spend money. I want deep zoom. I want to show contents of an illustrated book. I want to compare images. I want to ask users to cite and share images. I want annotation. So these are all the advantages. And then finally, last slide. So what are the museum use cases? This isn't fully evolved, but here's some of them and some of the things you have to do. Searching is not fully developed. I mean, you really have to know the URL of the asset and where it is and all to bring it in. So they're working on that now, but if you get active, we want to push. And if there are developers who are good at developing search engines, come along and work. It's a really good cooperative team approach. So we want to be able to search manifests. These things that we've talked about, searching collections, knowing which collections we can search. Save the search and share it. Search connected image collections and have your metadata structured for, which is usually Lido, but structured in a way so that when we want to do searching by particular fields or Boolean searching, we can be able to do that for objects. So as I was saying, until there's significant membership of museums, so chicken egg, you folks get excited. They'll welcome you at meetings, and you develop something. Chances are more museums will be on their board. A lot of there's a discussion list on their website, which was on one of the first slides, IIIF.io. That's the whole thing, and there's a lot of material there, so that's a good resource. So thank you. 3 minutes. Sorry.
We've got 5 minutes for questions, yes. Questions from the audience?
So just before the question, just to also point out, as Alan said, there is a great community for this stuff. It's very active. They're very welcoming to new participants. For anyone who's in Europe next month, there is the IIIF Winter Working Group meeting in Ghent in Belgium. So again, if you want to know more, I strongly recommend going along to that meeting.
Short train ride from Paris, folks.
There's a IIIF Discuss Google group, and there are community calls every 2 weeks where everybody gets together on a webinar basically and discusses issues and talks about future direction. So it's very active, very inclusive, great community.
And we hear rumors from Eric Landsberg that there may be a IIIF meeting in New
We're
York.
still talking about it, right, but there
Talking
may
about
be an East Coast meeting
in the spring?
in spring, not in May. And we talked about perhaps bringing that to New York and maybe jointly sponsoring imaging, the library, New York Metro Library.
Well, if it's in New York, that must make it real then, right?
Makes it expensive.
Guess I'm staying on somebody's couch instead of on the
Yeah,
couch.
if you can do it there, you can do it anywhere.
Other real questions?
I don't know if it's a real question, but is there anybody here from the American Art Collaborative?
Yeah.
I've heard rumors that IIIF might be investigated in that project. Can you address that or not?
Actually, can you first address what the American Art Collaborative is? Because I think probably a lot of people know and may not be aware.
Yeah, good point. So 14 institutions holding American art collaborating to take some of the collection data and custom it more, to convert to linked data and discover its utility and service to scholarly audiences. And it's convenient that Rob Sanderson was one of our advisors about a year ago, and the IIIF standard matured at a really convenient time. It looked like just what we needed to sort of close the gap on what the scholars were saying is they looked at the prospect of us putting linked data in front of it with a nice interface without images and sort of questioning that and saying, my job is one of visual inspection, and so IIIF looks like it's going to be a really great addition here in the next phase of effort at AAC.
Rob Sanford, Sanders is at Stanford and one of the lead developers for IIIF.
I saw others on this thing.
Are the derivative images created on the fly and served up as separate file structure, or is there some other alternative mechanism for how those are created?
They're created on the fly to be to sort of truly conform to IIIF. They are on the fly because in a way anybody.
Can you speak into the mic? I'm sorry.
Sorry, yeah. Just to say, is this working?
Yeah.
Okay, just say that they are truly generated on the fly. There are no sort of pre-generated derivatives, which in a way is the old way, the bad way, because it can't be as flexible. It has to be on the fly because it has to be able to respond to every single parameter that someone might throw at it.
That said, because it's a RESTful API, it's also completely cacheable. So some of the image servers have built-in caches, but you could certainly put a varnish cache or something in front of it and have some pretty good performance.
I had a question for Melissa, actually.
So could you speak up just a little bit?
Oh, okay. Hi, Melissa, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about mass converting to JP2s and why you chose to go to JP2 and what was involved in doing that. So I'm assuming a whole bunch of image files.
So actually, it ended up being really easy for us. Michael Appleby, who's a developer at Yale, he was the one who kind of chose and implemented the IIIF compliance server and spec'd out the profile of the JPEG 2000s that we wanted to do. And he made it really easy for us. So unfortunately, my answer is not going to be that helpful to you. I basically just had to, do a bulk update of a few thousand records in the DAM, which took me a few minutes. And, there they were. So But I'm sure Michael would be happy to answer questions. I can give you his info if you like. Yeah.
JPEG 2000 is not the only image supported as a source. There's also the pyramidal TIFF format, which if you're using the IIP image server, you know is supported by that. And as Yale's using it, that server also implements a IIIF compliant API.
We have time for one more question. Trevor.
It seemed like most or all the examples for museums were art museums. I'm just curious if there are other sorts of museums that are involved in this effort. It seems like it's a generic problem, an issue for all kinds of museums.
It's a good point. I don't know of any science or history museums. Do you? Anyone else?
No,
that
but
have joined in?
if you go to IIIF.io, there's a list of implementations. But
Rob Sanderson has a number of publications when he's presenting them. He gives some interesting examples, particularly from archives, like manuscript reassemblage from dispersed geographic locations, all sorts of other material culture other than art.
And just to add to that, I'd say effectively any museum or indeed any organization who has images should be interested in this. You know, if you've got high resolution images, then publish them using IIIF and you gain all the benefits that we've gone through.
Yeah, that's a good point. There are two major repositories that are members, and that's Art Store and Europeana. So that covers a lot of museums that aren't art museums.
Great, thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Good job, people.
So we're just going to do a quick changeover, let people leave who need to leave, and let other people arrive who need to arrive. Up next will be Haitham from New Orleans.
Good job.
You're heading out? No, I don't know where I'm heading.
You're coming to dinner tonight. Where is that? I don't know.
Right. Hello, everyone. My name is Haitham Eid, and this is my first time at the MCN, and it's very exciting. Thank you so much for coming to listen to me today. You're very brave. I don't know if anyone would come and listen to a guy named Haitham Eid, this kind of. But thank you. Well, my presentation today is about open innovation and how it can be conducive to museums. If you're on Twitter, you can use the hashtag open innovation. And the hashtag open innovation is not just for this presentation. It's a whole community that goes across many disciplines, not just museum discipline, and actually more of them in the business side of the sector. So please feel free to use that. Also, before we start, I would like to mention that what we will discuss today is open innovation, but it's part of a bigger model I am proposing through my research. And the model used three concepts: open innovation, social enterprise, and social innovation. And many of you listened yesterday to the keynote speaker talking about social innovation. So I'm looking into how social innovation is used in museums and along with social enterprise and open innovation. So just be mindful that there is a whole to the discussion, a whole another level to the discussion. It's not just open innovation. All right, so let's start with open innovation. The concept of open innovation was coined by Henry Chesbrough, professor of business at Haas School of Business, UCLA, Berkeley, in his 2003 iconic book, Open Innovation, The New Imperative for Creating and Profiting from Technology. Chesbrough spent a long time studying innovation models in many Silicon Valley companies such as Xerox and IBM. In his study, Chesbrough found out that many companies relied on closed model of innovation, which worked really well for a long time period, and brought to the world great breakthrough innovation. Chesbrough explained that the old model of closed innovation firms adhere to the following philosophy: successful innovation requires control. In other words, companies must generate their own ideas that would then develop, manufacture, market, distribute, and serve themselves. They do the whole work. Firms receive profits from introducing new innovation to the market and use some of their profit to invest in more R&D. If the firm wanted to stay competitive in the market, they had to heavily invest and protect their internal R&D. So as you see on the left, as illustrated here in the graph, firms worked on many research projects, but only few of these projects made it to the development phase and then to the market. As a result, a huge number of unfinished projects sit on shelves in the labs of many firms. The firm boundaries, as you see represented in solid lines, do not allow any ideas or projects to leave or enter the firm. According to Chesbrough, the closed model of innovation started to erode, and a new model of innovation started to emerge. By the end of the 20th century, and due to various factors such as increased mobility of skilled workers, people are moving from one company to another, and also expansion of venture capital, which made the money necessary to start a new firm more accessible, as well as increased availability of high-capable outsourcing partners. All of these factors made the closed model of innovation become increasingly unsustainable. For example, if a company, for any reasons, decided to discontinue a project, the team who worked on that project now has many options to explore, which were not previously available. They can start their own firm and continue working on the project, or move to another company and carry with them all the acquired knowledge and expertise, or even sell the idea to another company. In other words, the boundary between a firm and its surrounding environment has become more porous, enabling innovation to move easily between the two. Contrary to the closed model of innovation, Chesbrough model enables ideas or projects to leave or enter the firm. He argues that unused ideas sitting on the shelves at many universities and companies can be used by other firms, which help ideas to flourish and the whole economy to grow. It's more distributed, more participatory, more decentralized approach to innovation. Okay, before we go to Chesbrough, open innovation is very much about bridging internal and external resources to make innovation happen. Chesbrough defines open innovation in his own words as a paradigm that assumes that business both can and should use external ideas as well as internal ideas and internal and external paths to market when seeking to advance their technology. So I would like you to listen to Chesbrough talking about open innovation. If it works. Well, we can skip it, but he actually, in his interview, explains more about how open innovation just a few years ago was very uncommon, and within the last 10 years, when he wrote his book, open innovation became very popular and used in many different companies. And I'll give you some examples of companies that use open innovation as a major concept in their work. So for example, Ford, as you see, they really take advantage of open innovation and try to get ideas from the public and from anybody, you know, in the environment to strengthen their innovation. Microsoft, and there is a nice quote here, I don't know if you can read it. For many people, Microsoft and open innovation may not seem the most obvious of bedfellows. However, says the company's Deputy General Counsel for IP, that's exactly what they are. So they really embrace open innovation. Sony company, in their strategy for 2008-2010, they state, if you look at the first sentence in the slide, Sony is also promoting the concept of open innovation, whereby we're looking not only inside the company, but outside for technology that foster innovation. So it's really, even NASA, they have a special website for open innovation. And actually, they have a mandate from the White House to open up and be more recipient for the community to participate and innovate. So as we attempt to discuss open innovation, I would like to take a few minutes and try to reflect on what innovation really is. As we know, most of the innovations come from the business sector, and the concept itself is very well researched in the business studies discipline. According to the United States Department of Commerce, innovation is the design, invention, development, and or implementation of new or altered products, services, process, systems, organizational structures, or business models for the purpose of creating new value for customers and financial returns for the firm. As we see, the definition here, like many other definitions that exist in the literature, connects innovation to the ability of the organization to create new values for customers, and this value is measured through financial means. However, this is not the case for nonprofit organizations in general and museums in particular. Museums are about creating social and cultural value through education, research, and programming. Therefore, I propose that museum innovation can be defined as the new or enhanced processes, products, or business models by which museums can effectively achieve their social and cultural missions. As you know, this here innovation within the museum context is connected to the social and cultural mission of the museum, which is different than the business understanding of innovation. Please, let's keep that in mind as we continue our discussion about open innovation in museums. All right, let's take a couple examples of open innovation in museums. So my first example here is the Tech Museum of Innovation. In 2007, the Tech Museum of Innovation in San Jose, California, received $1.5 million from Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation to launch the Tech Open Source Museum project, or the Tech Virtual. The project provided an online platform for museums and experts from different parts of the world to collaborate in designing museum exhibitions. In a paper entitled Open Innovation and Open Source, a guide for content developers published at the Museums and the Web 2012, Bob Kettner explained the project goals and mechanisms. Most importantly, however, Bob started his paper defining open innovation as one of the major concepts for the project. He used a brief definition of innovation, quoting Castro as a means of production for innovation, and added that open innovation is generally achieved by opening up the organization to allow the contribution of new ideas from outside contributors toward a product or goal. I strongly believe that there are many museums out there that use open innovation strategies. And if I ask some of you now, you'll be able to name more examples of open innovation in your museum. Before we proceed with my second example, which is Cooper Hewitt Digital Team, I would like to propose a definition for inbound open innovation and outbound open innovation. So inbound open innovation activities are the process by which museums can attract, acquire, and utilize knowledge that exists outside the museum to advance their internal innovation process, while outbound open innovation activities are the process by which museums make their internal knowledge available to other museums and organizations to accelerate innovation. So one is outside coming in, which is inbound, and the other one is inside out, if it makes sense. Cooper Hewitt, our example for open innovation. So at Cooper Hewitt, I'm going to discuss two paths for open innovation at Cooper Hewitt. The first one is open sourcing, making source codes available for developers. So that would be inbound or outbound. When you make your source code available to others, this is outbound. Thank you. So this is outbound. So Cooper Hewitt Lab is one of the most important contributors to the open innovation movement in museums. An example of their contribution is the code they use for Chromecast experimentation, where members of Chan's team worked with Google engineers to find more cost-effective digital signage alternatives for museums. The lab advertises its contribution and invites inputs from the wider community. They state on their website, "We have put all of this code up on our GitHub account, and we encourage you to try it out and let us know where and when it does not work and to contribute to your fixes." For those who are not familiar with GitHub, it's a platform for sharing, building, and managing open source codes. There are many codes available on Cooper Hewitt Lab's account on GitHub. The strategy of sharing source code does not only help others to improve their operations by using the code, which is outbound like we agreed, but also improves the code itself, which can be inbound as well because you're using the same source code in your museum. So while you're contributing to others, others are contributing to you. So it becomes more into a circle innovation process. So skilled developers from around the world can contribute to the source codes, which leads to incremental improvement. There are many individuals with very high level skill sets in the world, allowing them to contribute to the museum internal R&D, which in return helps museum increase their ability to innovate. So that was the first path at Cooper Hewitt. The second one is open reflection. There are many studies out there that argue self and open reflection in the workplace is an important factor in driving innovation. How does the digital team at Cooper Hewitt approach open reflection? Through blogging. Chan's team uses blogging to reflect upon their experimentation, where they also receive feedback from audience and other professionals in the field. In my interview with Sab Chan last year, who was then the Director of Digital and Emerging Media at Cooper Hewitt, he explained, "We operate in public, and we make incremental change in public, and we encourage everybody here who writes code to write about their code." Chan also argued, I think what is interesting with the team here, and to a degree, the team at Powerhouse, is we have tried to make our work public early. And I tried to get the staff to write about it publicly as means of reflecting on their own way of working, or another way, having a reflective practice. And these are quotes from Sab Chan. All right, so this graph here shows how open reflection also can function as inbound and outbound path to museum innovation. Obviously, I have discovered other paths of open innovation at Cooper Hewitt, but unfortunately, we do not have enough time here to go through all of them. But it is important to note that each and every museum is unique in many different ways. And it's up to each museum, if interested, to create their own open innovation strategy. So in the next few minutes, I would like to share with you some tips on the traditional model for museums, and if you want to approach open innovation, how would you think about it? So the first one here is people with traditional thinking. I'm sorry for all the tweets are coming here. All right. So for traditional museum thinking, they would think that museums do not need to innovate. This is not our job. For open innovation thinking, museums are creative institutions and positions to innovate. Traditional museum model, most of the smart people in the museum field work for us. We're good. We're great already. So the open innovation mindset, not all the smart people work for us. So we must find and tap into the knowledge and expertise of bright individuals outside our museum. Traditional museum mindset would say, to achieve our mission and create successful exhibitions and programs, we must do all the work ourselves. Takes it in our hand. Open innovation mindset would say, partnerships with other museums and organizations can create significant value, social or financial. However, internal R&D is needed to claim more portion of that value, or some portion of that value. All right, the second one, or the following one. If we build a new wing and have expansive blockbuster exhibition, we will have more visitors. Open innovation mindset, building a sustainable and better business model and creating a lasting social value can be more beneficial for our community. Traditional mindset would say, if we create the most and the best ideas in the sector, we will be successful. The open innovation mindset would say, if we make the best use of internal and external ideas, we will be successful. The traditional one would say, we should keep the results of our experimentation inside the museum, especially if it was not successful. So they're afraid of sharing failure. The open innovation mindset would say, we should share best practices with the museum sector and be open to discuss what has worked for us and what has not. The last one, our curators are qualified and capable of interpreting the museum collection. The open innovation mindset would say, we must involve other stakeholders, experts, community members, audience, collectors, let it be, in the interpretation of our collection and be open to various interpretations. So this is my presentation for today. And again, thank you so much for being a great audience. And I hope it wasn't very boring. That's a very good question, because actually this is an issue with open innovation in general that is more laying into inbound, because everybody's looking into how to strengthen their internal R&D. But if you approach open, and again, they don't have to be balanced. You don't need to do the balance. It just happened because we're the museum sector is open to share, so it happens both ways. In a very energetic way, but they don't need to be balanced. But again, if you publicize that you're using open innovation, people will come ask you questions, and as a result, you try to help them out with with your internal knowledge. So that's how it works. Like, inbound and outbound goes both ways. But again, they do not have to be balanced at all. Does that answer the question?
Right. I'm guess, I mean, you're saying that they don't have to be balanced, but if you're looking at some of the businesses you showed earlier, Sony, Microsoft, they were talking about looking outside for resources. How are they then sharing them back out? What are the actual ways that is happening that we can model as well?
Well, the open source movement, they do a lot of free software, and they make a lot of knowledge available, a lot of their codes available for developers. Of course, they are not sharing everything because they are about profits, but they are trying to be more open to let some of their projects go and ask people for input. So, yeah.
Could you actually talk a little bit about how you define innovation itself? I mean, we're talking about open and closed innovation, but I feel like innovation is something that, you're not going to run into a museum that would say we're not interested in being innovative, right?
Right.
But functionally, few museums are actually producing anything much that I would say is fundamentally that. But so for you, how do you define innovation itself? Like, when does something cross that threshold from just being like kind of a cool thing to do into being like truly innovative in some way? What does that definition look like?
That's a great question. And again, this is part of a bigger model. So in my opinion, to innovate, you have to have a purpose. You do not innovate for the sake of innovation. And I think this is the problem with, many museums. So my advice would be go to your mission statement, look at it, see what the role the museum should play in your community, what defines the museum, and anything you do inside the museum, including innovation with digital, should evolve around this goal. And this is when social innovation come to play, that we are here to enhance our communities culturally, socially, and everything we should do should connect to this, in my opinion.
Okay, I'm gonna follow up on that because I'm not buying it.
Okay, sure.
Well, just in the sense that to me, it feels that almost in a way something that's fully within inside your existing museum mission statement, almost by definition cannot be innovative. Somebody jump on me with that because I don't think that's probably right, but I just said it. So, this is I like the open innovation framework. I have a hard time understanding how I would adopt it in an institutional environment in which innovation itself is fundamentally misunderstood or defined fundamentally differently by almost every single party that lives there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, I'm just sort of
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, the culture has to change for sure. The museum sector is accustomed to do what they know how to do, and this is not innovation. Innovation is about change. It's about doing something new and different. So changing the culture inside the institution culture, that's crucial. This is part of I think the answer. And also innovation, because it has to go across the whole museums. It has to come from maybe higher level authority inside the museum. If you're just working there and you're trying to be innovative, you can be in some way, but will not have the same result if it's adopted on across the institution on a bigger level. If that answered the question.
Yeah, it's really a comment to both things that have been said. I would say that there is a lot of outbound open innovation collaboration going on in the museum sector in the shape of hackathons these years. I mean, that's a huge trend. However, and I think that hinges on what you're saying, Coven, very often hackathons don't really make so many tangible results. There are a lot of great interactions going on for a weekend, and they come up with some prototypes, it's exciting and so on, but how many of those really turn into new and great ways to interact with the museum content and so on? Often it just dies right there. can give some good examples of this kind of outbound relationship that is yielding some real steps forward for museum users?
I mean, you touched into many great points. And maybe I now understand Calvin's question better after your comment, which because what happens is a lot of funders ask museums now to be innovative, and you have to show how the innovation will occur in the organization or with the money you're getting from the funders. So there is tendency now that everybody's innovative, and anything they do is innovative. So the term itself become more it's losing its meaning. So we don't know actually what innovation is. So for that could be good for some people who are doing creative work, but it's not very innovative and getting attention. But it's dangerous because we're watering down the term, the innovation term. So, and again, in my research, I suggest that when we say innovation, we have to have specific criteria to what innovation is, with to meet this criteria to be innovative projects and present it as innovative in the sector. And my suggestion here is to really compare the impact of the project on the sector widely. Because one day I was reading the news and somebody became a museum director in a university museum. And he said, we're gonna do digital innovation. And that's by having a Facebook page and Twitter account. And I was like, wow. This is not what digital innovation is. So again, whatever the project is, I think it has to have impact on how we function in the sector. At least it doesn't have to be universal, like Apple coming up with new products, or I don't think we need to be at this level. But at least sector-wide, the project has to have something to contribute to the sector. Yes.
Sorry, we're at the time, so we do actually have to break out. But
I just wanted to make one point. Oh, yeah. The Museum Computer Network has an online page listing other museums' GitHub accounts. If you just search Museum Computer Network and GitHub, I know GitHub's not the only place to be online, to be digital innovative, but that's a great place. And if you've got projects that aren't listed there, please get in touch with me or submit a pull request on GitHub.
You guys had a great conference a few months ago about innovation in museums. Was at Cambridge, I believe, the MCN. No, I'm. Yes, yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, mix it up. Okay.
thank you very much.
Thank you.